Okay, so have you ever noticed this? Like you'll be working on something new, could be anything really. Yeah, like maybe you're trying to finally learn that cool guitar riff.
Okay.
Or maybe it's something deeper like breaking a habit that's been hanging around a little too long.
Right. We've all been there.
Exactly. And it always feels like there's this moment where it clicks, where things finally start to
Yeah,
shift.
you're not just going through the motions anymore. Something changes.
Exactly. And today's deep dive is all about getting strategic with those moments. We're talking about what really drives successful change. And to help us unpack this, we're tapping into the world of advanced conversational hypnosis with expert Virginie.
Now, before anyone pictures, swinging pocket watches,
Right. It's not that kind of hypnosis show.
not at all. This is about practical change, everyday stuff.
Totally. And Imir kicks things off with a pretty bold statement. She says the specific method, the actual technique, only accounts for 15% of the outcome.
15%, that's it.
15%. I mean, it makes you think, right? Like all that time we spend trying to find the perfect therapist, the right program.
Chasing that magic bullet.
Exactly. But Imir's research is basically saying, hold on a second, it's not that simple.
Nope, not even close. It's way more nuanced than that.
Okay, so then what's really going on here? Well, Imir breaks it down into a few key factors. And
Sure.
the first one is a biggie, the client factor, which she says accounts for a whopping 40% of the equation.
The client factor, meaning you, the person who's actually trying to make the change.
Right. So this is about our motivation, our personality, what kind of support system we have, even just what's going on in our lives at that moment.
All of it, yeah.
So like I might have this big goal of wanting to learn a new language,
Sure.
but if I'm working 3 jobs and haven't slept in a week, maybe now's not the best time to start, right? Like our internal world matters.
Absolutely. It's like showing up for a marathon having not trained. Your mindset matters. Your preparation matters.
Right. And it's kind of empowering when you think about it, right? Like we have more agency than we often realize.
We really do. It's about recognizing that you're not starting from scratch. You have a history, strengths, challenges, all of that comes into play.
It's about knowing yourself.
Exactly. And Imir talks about this idea of the strategic call, which is basically this crucial first step, this conversation that needs to happen right at the beginning. And it's not just about booking an appointment.
It's about figuring out if you're really ready to do the work.
Yes. It's less about tell me what to do and more about am I truly committed to this? It's about getting real with yourself before you even begin.
It's like that moment of truth before a big hike. Are you packing a light snack or prepping for a week in the wilderness?
It really is. Because we can fool ourselves into thinking we're all gung-ho for something, but
We deep down.
deep down there might be some hesitation, or maybe our expectations aren't lining up with the reality of what it takes.
Yeah, like wanting to be a rock star, but not wanting to practice scales.
Exactly. So that strategic call, that's where you get clear on, okay, what am I actually willing to put in here?
Love that. Okay, so we've got the client factor, that internal landscape, but then there's the actual relationship itself, right? Like between a therapist and client or coach and student.
Right, that dynamic. And Imir gives that a lot of weight, 30% to be exact.
30%? Wow. So it's not just about finding someone with the right credentials.
It's bigger than that. It's about that human connection, feeling truly seen and heard.
Makes you think about those teachers you had in school, the ones who really got you.
Yeah, the ones who you felt like you could actually talk to.
Exactly. It wasn't just about what they were teaching, it was how they made you feel.
Right, it was that feeling of being understood
Yeah,
that made all the difference.
totally. And Eimer talks about how important authenticity is in building that connection.
Like you can't force it
Right. She's not a fan of that whole fake it till you make it
the right
approach.
way, because real connection starts with being yourself right from the beginning.
So it's about being upfront about your needs, your expectations, all of that.
Yeah, clear, honest communication from the get-go,
Yeah.
even before you step into the therapist's office or hop on that Zoom call.
So it's less about trying to impress anyone and more about showing up as you are.
Exactly. And then this next part is where things get really interesting. Imir factors in the placebo effect, gives it a full 15%.
The placebo effect. Okay, so we're talking about the power of belief now.
We are, because it turns out our beliefs, our expectations, they have a much bigger impact than we realize.
It's like when you convince yourself you're going to nail that job interview, And then you actually do.
Exactly. It's not just positive thinking. It's about how those beliefs influence our behavior, our energy.
So it's like our minds can actually impact real-world outcomes.
It's pretty wild when you think about it, right? And while we don't fully understand all the mechanisms at play,
It's like we're still figuring out how this whole mind-body connection really works.
yeah, it's a mystery, but a fascinating one. But there's more and more research showing that it's a two-way street.
It really is amazing, like, just thinking about the power our minds have to shape things.
It's huge. And it makes you wonder how much we're kind of getting in our own way
Oh,
sometimes.
totally. Like, we get so focused on finding that one right answer.
Right. That quick fix.
Exactly. But what I'm hearing from Imir is that real change, lasting change, it requires something more from us.
It does. It requires us to show up, to participate.
So it's not enough to just go through the motions, like read the self-help book, but not actually.
It's about taking action. It's about being an active participant in your own life.
Okay, so that makes sense, but how do we actually do that? What does that look like in practice?
Well, Imir talks about shifting from being a passive recipient to being a co-creator.
So co-creator, I like that.
So it's about taking that information, those techniques, and asking yourself, okay, how can I make this work for me?
It's like tailoring it to fit your own life.
Exactly. It's about figuring out what resonates with you, what feels authentic.
Because we're all different, right?
Yeah.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. And that's where that self-awareness comes in, remembering that you're not starting from scratch.
Right, we talked about that, the client factor.
Yes. Bringing all of who you are to the table.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. Really makes you think about change in a whole new light.
It really does. And, if we had to sum it all up, it boils down to this. You have more power than you realize.
That's a great takeaway. We're not just along for the ride, we're the ones behind the wheel.
Exactly. And by understanding these key elements, the client factor, the connection, the belief, the active participation, we can approach change with more intention, more awareness.
And ultimately have a better chance of actually making those changes stick.
Absolutely. It's about becoming an active participant in your own life, in your own transformation.
I love that. So the next time you're looking to make a change, whether it's big or small, remember, you've got this. You have the power to make it happen. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.